Hi everyone. Before I start today, I wanted to say, although I am speaking to a crowd full of strangers, I already know that I am speaking to a few of you who are sexual assault survivors. So I wanted to make the point to say that if anything I say today is too difficult for you to hear, that it is okay for you to take some time to yourself and walk away. I won't be offended or take it personally, so take the time you need for self-care. Thank you, Knight and USF, for hosting this event and letting me be a part of it. This is exactly the kind of resource that I wish I had when I was on a college campus struggling. It is an honor to be welcomed onto this campus to speak of my experiences in hope of being part of someone's healing today. Before being attacked, most victims of sexual assault live in what I call an exception bubble. I was no different. A lot of us live in a bubble of, well, it won't happen to us. You see it online, in the paper, on the news. We know that rape happens, but most of us don't go through life believing it doesn't exist. But most of us believe that this terrible thing which tugs on our heartstrings for a few minutes when we read or hear a story will never happen to us. I didn't believe the statistic included people who followed the rules and laid out by society not to get raped. I believed my privilege would be my shield because I came from a good family in a quaint town. I worked hard, I knew my limits, I never drank until I blacked out, I wasn't promiscuous, I wore socially acceptable clothes. I thought I knew how to defend myself after 5 years of karate, but it still happened. I thought because I only spent one semester unscathed living on campus and was at the time commuting to college that it meant I was going to be able to avoid the danger of college rape. But no one is immune to sexual assault. It doesn't matter your gender, ethnicity, religion, socioeconomic status, education level, age, etc. It is a crime we are all susceptible to. When I was 19 years old and just finished my first year at college, I decided to go to a party to be a designated driver to two of my friends. I had just finished my shift at work before When I was 19 years old and just finished my first year of college, I decided to go to a party to be designated driver to two of my friends. I had just finished my shift at work before heading over. The party had already been going on for a couple of hours by this time. Now, this is the part where I feel the need to tell you what I was wearing. Although I know logically it isn't necessary and it shouldn't matter, I have been conditioned to try to avoid victim blaming by providing personal details that I shouldn't have to feel forced to share. It was a New England summer night, and I was wearing a shallow neckline, rock the boat t-shirt, a sweatshirt, jeans, and a pair of flip-flops. The kitchen smelled like stale beer as I navigated the crowd of partygoers, looking for my friends. A man noticed I looked out of place and overwhelmed and offered to help me find them. I welcomed the help until I followed him into a back room to look inside, and it was too late when I realized he had locked the door. I felt a flood of panic and confusion. I didn't understand what was happening to me. I was so naive and trusting I was completely caught off guard. I tried to fight and scream, but it wasn't working. There was a point where I thought I wasn't going to make it out alive. Each strike was stopped by a stronger opposing force, and then I floated over my body like I was watching it happen to someone else. It was like watching a terrible movie you couldn't shut off. I remember just thinking to myself, Why is no one coming to save her? When it was all done, I pulled my pants back on and ran out the door after he whispered that no one would believe me. As I ran out of the room, I was mocked by the drunk guys in the kitchen who asked what I was doing sledding around in there. I didn't understand how they couldn't see that something was wrong, or how they didn't hear me, but it didn't matter. I had to get out of there and get to safety as quick as possible. I left my friends there with no explanation and just drove off. When I got home, I tried to scrub the event off of my skin, but I felt like I was marked from that day out. His sweat had sunken into my pores and no amount of exfoliation would remove it. I gazed upon my body, drawing a roadmap connecting my marks, and I became overwhelmed with anger. I hated my body. Surely it was what attracted the unwanted attention, not to mention it wasn't strong enough to protect me. My misdirected anger ate away at me like an infection in my body that had crept into my brain. A few weeks later, I came up with what I thought was a brilliant idea. I had saved the clothes I was wearing that night. I put them in a plastic IKEA trash bin, which I brought outside. I placed it on a gravel bed, sprayed it with some hairspray, and I lit it all on fire. This was going to be my Phoenix moment. I was going to rise from the ashes and be healed. No longer a victim, but a survivor. Well, it didn't go very well. The clothes were flame retardant, and I kept having to light it over and over and over again. This wasn't the beautiful healing moment that I had pictured it to be. But I guess it was only fitting because, like my clothes, I couldn't destroy my memory. They both left me with a mess to have to clean up. Everything felt like it was falling apart. My grades started to slip when school started back up. I didn't have a Title IX advocate, so I was forced to share my story with my teachers so I didn't fail their classes. I didn't have the campus events or media coverage for sexual assault like this. I believed it was only me until I found another victim at school. It was like a terrible sigh of relief to not be the only one anymore. Then, of course, I felt guilty that I was sort of happy that this terrible thing had happened to someone else. My whole life, I always wanted to have a group of inseparable friends that you see on TV, the kind that are bonded for life. But this is not what I pictured. Now I was inducted into this club. We were all in it for life and none of us wanted to be a member, because that meant you had to be violated to get in. Not having the resources and awareness can lead to severe isolation of victims, perpetuating a feeling of something being wrong with them. I remember one day my sophomore year, I had a huge breakdown and vomited outside of my class. That's when I decided it was time for me to see a counselor. I remember filling out the card in the waiting room of the office that said, "Why are you here?" I wrote, "I was raped less than a year ago and I don't know how to deal with it. I'm falling apart." My counselor was not educated on trauma, and it was detrimental to my recovery. Because her main focus was young adults who were binge drinking, she tried to put me through her own version of the 12-step program, where she replaced alcohol with trauma because I wasn't an alcoholic. I found myself apologizing to people I thought I wronged by being raped, which only led to more self-blame and self-hatred fueling my deep depression. Now, healing from rape is not linear. It is not the same for each victim. I myself went through denial, downward spiral, confronting the truth. I fell apart. I tried therapy. It didn't work. I fell apart again. I tried therapy again. It didn't work. And decided to just move on like it wasn't a big deal. I wasn't hiding it, but I wasn't telling people if it didn't come up. About 6 months to a year after the assault, I finally shared what had happened to me with my family and a few close friends. Their reactions varied as expected, but I felt this enormous pressure to be someone I wasn't any longer. It was too hard to be around people who knew me before. I originally had this thought that if I could just get out alive, that I could just move on, but my body remembered what my brain wanted to forget. Even after the initial healing of my injuries, my body was still suffering and I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Large part of my time directly after diagnosis was consumed with unhealthy coping mechanisms and self-induced isolation, until I met the love of my life. He was understanding of my past, he was patient with me, and he was 100% supportive. things start to turn around fast. But with some time, my pure joy was still tainted by my PTSD. So when we got married, we moved across the country so I could feel safe again. When I had our first child, I had a huge setback when the pain from childbirth reminded me of the pain in recovery from the rape years before. I was re-triggered and experienced a flood of flashbacks for months that were only made worse by postpartum depression. It eventually got better again, as it always does, with a few setbacks along the way. Then a year and a half ago, I had my aha moment. It was just before the Me Too movement had really made a big splash on social media. I found myself pushed one day to find my voice. Once I started speaking up, once I started sharing my story, I realized I could help others who have also been sexually assaulted. I wanted to do my part to make sure that no one felt as alone and isolated after a trauma of this kind the way I did. Although I know I can't save everyone, it has brought me closure knowing that for someone, I have been part of their healing process. You don't have to be a rape survivor to do something. You can push for political policies for survivors. You can raise awareness about the issue. You can watch out for your friends and the people around you. If you see someone who needs help or may be too inebriated to consent, you can try to get them to safety. You can volunteer at your local crisis centers. You can listen to a victim without judgment. The list goes on. Although my journey of healing has been difficult, I know that I am lucky to have the support I currently have, and not everyone is lucky as I am. Not everyone gets PTSD like me, but also not everyone is able to climb out of the darkness. And knowing that has been a main motivator for me to continue the work that I'm doing in spreading awareness and providing support to those who need it. This one moment almost 10 years ago changed my life, but a million moments after shaped who I am today. For a long time, I focused on being fixed. I wanted my family, my friends, the medications, the doctors, the counselors, etc. to put me back together and make me whole again. Until I realized that I was never going to be that person I was before. Many victims like myself feel broken after. Part of my healing has been embracing all of those broken pieces to rebuild myself. I may no longer be a cookie-cutter picture of beautiful, but the mosaic I have created of myself with all of its imperfect pieces are the kind of art that is admired. Taking something broken and making it whole again, despite the pieces fitting properly, has allowed me to grow and fill in the gaps. It has been a hard road I never thought I would have to travel, but I am still going and I'm happy with where I am and who I am now. If you take anything away from what I've said today, I hope it is the importance of empathy. Empathy for others can not only prevent the crime from taking place by allowing predators to see their victims as people, not objects, but it can aid in the healing of others, whether it be from trauma like mine or anything else that they may be struggling with. People like you, who are making an effort to be a part of a huge change in our social culture by attending events like this and practicing what you have learned here today, are a key component to this movement, and that helps end rape culture and promotes support of victims like myself. And for that, I thank you. Now, before I kick off the rest of the scheduled activities, including the open mic portion of this event, I wanted to share an open letter that I wrote to my rapist, but have never read out loud. To the monster who raped me. I originally wanted to say to the man who raped me, but I don't think I could give you the title of man when I know a real man would never do what you have done. I wonder if you think of me, if you remember the night in such vivid detail that you can recall the scent of my skin. Do I rent space in your head? You have been a squatter in the abandoned part of my mind, the part I want to condemn and tear down, but there you are, ignoring my eviction notice, not allowing me to move completely forward. I have built a beautiful city of dreams and accomplishments around the slum you live in that's called PTSD. I put up a tall wall so no one in my life has to see you and see the damage you have done. Did your life change that night too? Do you carry that night like a dirty secret or a badge of honor? Are you ashamed like me? Did that night teach you how easy it was to make someone a victim because it taught me how easy it was to become a victim? I thought I was always too strong, too prepared, too sheltered to be a victim. I thought that somehow I and the people close to me were the exception to the statistic. You taught me that the world can be a scary place and my mind could become even scarier than the world around me. It feels like you stole a piece of me. Not just my virginity, but how I view my body, my naivety, my sense of safety, my confidence, my relationships, my trust, my control, and the quiet part of my mind. You replaced all of these things with fear, sadness, shame, anger, and left the rest empty, to be filled with overthinking and social stigma. Do you wish you could take back your actions? Are you sorry? I don't know if a plea for forgiveness would mean anything to me, but a part of me still wonders. Do you see my face when you look at strangers? Because sometimes I see yours. I thought what you did to me made me weak, but I've come to realize I'm stronger than I could have ever imagined. They say rape is about power, and I now believe that is true. You showed me a sense of power I never knew I had. I never thought I could function on so little sleep. I never thought I was capable of such resilience. I never knew I could fight off demons meant to destroy me. I never thought I could make a difference in others' lives in recovery. I never knew that my voice could echo so loud that it could be heard around the world. I'm sure this wasn't your intent. I thought you took away my voice too, but I found it again. Does that scare you? Out of your darkness, I have emerged a new version of myself. At the beginning, I couldn't recognize her. She was molded from violence and violation, and she will not shrink back into that scared girl you knew that night. You may have broken me, but you didn't destroy me. I haven't stopped fighting since that night. First, I fought for my sanity, then I fought to find happiness. I still fight every day against the damage you have done, but now I fight for others too. I may only look like one person, but I am one of many who will continue to fight against the atrocities you and monsters like you commit. Our light will shine brightest when faced with your darkness until the whole world glows with the empathy it so desperately needs. Thank you.